My name is Alara Whitaker, and I was 29 the morning I found the note taped to our bathroom mirror. Alara, I can't do this anymore. The kids, the house, pretending to be happy, it's suffocating me. I need to find myself. I'll be back in a few years when I'm ready to be the father they deserve. Don't look for me. Victor. Half his closet was empty. His passport was gone. Our joint savings account, $23,000, had been bled dry sometime between midnight and dawn. I stood there in my robe, the house still and indecently bright, holding that piece of paper like it might catch fire if I breathed too hard. Chloe, 8, and Mason, 5, were still asleep. They dreamed through the sound of drawers sliding, through the zipper that must have closed over the life their father was choosing to leave behind. I should have called someone, maybe my sister, maybe his parents. Instead, I set the note on the counter and began to make lunches with a precision I didn't feel. Sandwiches cut diagonally for Chloe because triangles taste better to her. Mason's apple slices peeled because he swore the skins were too squeaky. By pickup time that afternoon, I had rehearsed 8 versions of the truth and found none of them kind. Daddy went away to think about things, I told them finally, buckling seatbelts with trembling hands. He loves you. He needs some time. Chloe nodded like she was 38 instead of 8. Mason stared out the window, counting clouds, silent, serious, unknowable. The first month I left the porch light on until sunrise. I kept expecting Victor to walk up the steps with that practiced crooked smile and $1,000 apology. He didn't. The kids asked every day when Daddy was coming home, and my answers got worse the longer he stayed gone. By week 2, I ran out of gentle words. I told them the truth. I don't know. Mason started wetting the bed again. Chloe stopped finishing dinner. At 3:00 a.m., my son would wake up screaming for a father who could not hear him, and my daughter would pad down the hallway and slip into his bed, reading whatever book was on the nightstand in a voice suddenly too old for her face. I listened at the doorway and hated the way resilience looks on children. I took family leave from the engineering firm because someone had to memorize the school pickup car line and the pediatrician's portal passwords. I learned to braid hair on YouTube, fingers cramping as I tried to keep sections even, while Chloe stood patient and brave in the bathroom light. On Saturday mornings, I made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, and Mason told me which ones were herbivores and which ones would eat our syrup if we weren't careful. After 4 months, drowning in questions, I hired a private investigator. He found a single credit card charge at a gas station in Colorado, and then nothing. Either Victor had vanished into cash and fake names, or the world had swallowed him whole. I paid $3,000 I didn't have and closed the case with a signature that felt like surrender. Year 2 found us by accident. Chloe joined soccer and discovered she was fast, really fast, and it made her smile reach the corners of her eyes again. Mason learned to ride his bike, wobbling along the cul-de-sac with a helmet slightly too big until he didn't wobble at all. We started camping on weekends because Victor had always refused, too messy, and because sleeping beneath a thin fabric sky made the kids giggle like we were breaking a small law. I learned that Chloe preferred grilled cheese with the crusts on if I said it made her strong. I learned that Mason was afraid of the dark, but too proud to admit it, so I bought a nightlight shaped like the moon and pretended it was a science experiment. Friends from work tried to set me up. I wasn't ready. How do you explain to a stranger that your husband abandoned your family and took the savings on his way out? How do you hand someone new the tender map of your children's hurts and ask them to be careful? That's when I met Lauren. It was a Tuesday, one of those mornings that already felt late by 8:15. Mason's preschool hallway smelled like crayons and optimism. I'd worn my sweater inside out and didn't realize until a man with kind eyes and an easy posture gestured at the exposed tag. "Rough morning?" he asked, smile tilted, not unkind. "Is it that obvious?" I tried to reverse the sweater without taking it off. Failed twice, laughed once. "Yesterday I sent Iris to school with 2 different shoes," he said. "Single parenting is like juggling while riding a unicycle." "This is Mason," I said when my son barreled into my legs and then pretended he hadn't. "I'm Alara." "Loren?" he said, and there was nothing heroic about the way he offered his hand, which is probably why I took it. He taught at the preschool, recently divorced, with a 6-year-old daughter named Iris, who was born with mild cerebral palsy and the fiercest sense of humor. He never looked at me like I was failing. When I finally told him the whole story, the note on the mirror, the silence that followed, he didn't blink. "Some people aren't built for the long haul," he said. "That doesn't reflect on you or on them." We started small. Coffee after school events, dinners when the kids were with grandparents. He knew why I kept granola bars in my glove compartment and why there were 12 alarms labeled "Leave Now" on my phone. He never asked for more information about Victor than I was ready to give. When he did share his own history, it came out spare and honest. The ex-wife who loved perfect pictures. The season he realized presence mattered more than performance. By the time Chloe learned to French braid herself, Lauren cheered like she'd won a medal, and Mason started telling Iris jokes about velociraptors, our house had begun to feel like something warmer than survival. Loren never tried to replace anyone. He just filled the empty spaces without stepping on the edges. At night, after the dishes and the homework and the last glass of water, I would stand at the bathroom mirror where the tape had left a faint, stubborn square. I told myself I was doing fine. I told myself the worst was behind us. I didn't know that the knock on the door was coming, that the past had its own set of keys. I only knew that the porch light was off again, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't need it. The first time Lauren and I sat across from each other without children between us, it was at a diner with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like endurance. We didn't call it a date, just two parents who had learned how to speak in brief, efficient sentences comparing calendars and survival tactics. Still, when he listened, he really listened, like my words didn't have to fight the noise to be heard. We built something slow on purpose. Coffee after the school sing-along turned into takeout on nights when the house felt too full of echoes. He never rushed the parts of me that were cautious. He understood why my phone alarms were labeled things like forms due and early dismissal, and why I kept a spreadsheet of sock sizes and dentist appointments. There was a gentleness in the way he moved through rooms, clearing plates without asking, fixing a wobbly chair, tightening the loose knob on Mason's dresser, as if steadiness were a language he was fluent in and happy to translate. Lauren's daughter, Iris, had a quiet courage that met Mason's noise with grace. She loved to draw tiny, intricate worlds, forests inside teacups, skylines painted on the backs of receipts. When she first came over, she stood at the edge of the living room fort like a visiting diplomat being briefed on regional customs. "Diplomats get passwords," Mason informed her solemnly. Iris considered, nodded, and whispered a word so soft it might have been a spell. The fort admitted her immediately. Chloe watched all of it with the wary hope of a child who has learned to catalog change before she trusts it. Lauren never tried to be anyone he wasn't. He showed up to her soccer games and clapped like he had invested stock in her stride. When she asked about French braids, he sat cross-legged with a wig head he bought online and practiced until the wig looked like it was headed to the Olympics. It wasn't that he tried to replace, it was that he respected the space where something had been and asked permission to help carry it. 3 years after Victor left, Lauren moved in. Not as a grand gesture with speeches and fanfare, but like the tide inching up a shoreline and deciding to stay. His boxes came labeled and disciplined. We opened them together on a Saturday while Iris and Mason hosted a Sabbath for stuffed animals in the hallway. We rearranged the living room, not to erase what had been, but to make room for what was becoming. Beige disappeared from the walls, replaced by colors that felt like the inside of a warm hand. Picture frames multiplied, blurry camping smiles, Iris's tiny worlds in glass, a candid of Chloe laughing so hard her eyes closed. I didn't know you could feel a house exhale. I didn't know mine had been holding its breath. He made small rituals that stitched themselves into our days. Pancake Sundays, with a rule that the first one was always for the cook. Tuesday night bike tune-ups in the driveway, where he taught Mason to listen to the chain and hear the story your gears are telling you. He put Post-it notes on the fridge for Chloe before away games. Feet first, then heart. Breathe on corner kicks. You're faster than your doubt. He had a way of turning fear into something with a handle. The first time Iris stayed over after he moved in, she lined up her braces in watercolor pans on the bathroom counter like soldiers, and then turned to me. "Do I put my toothbrush in your holder or mine?" she asked. The question softened something in me I didn't realize was still armored. "Yours," I said, "but we can make a space for it here too." We did, and she smiled like a door had opened in a room she thought was a closet. We married in our backyard 2 years later, in the kind of ceremony you can build from folding chairs and borrowed twinkle lights. Chloe refused to be called anything but best woman, and every photo of her that day looks like a proclamation. Mason took his job as ring bearer with a seriousness that could have negotiated treaties. Iris read a poem she wrote about gravity and choosing what keeps you close. Even Victor's parents came, grief wearing their faces like an old photograph. His mother stood beside me during the music and squeezed my hands so tightly I thought our bones might learn each other's names. "They look happy," she said finally, not asking permission, not apologizing for the weather she couldn't control. "They are," I told her, and I meant it without flinching. There was no orchestra, just a Bluetooth speaker that cut out twice and made us laugh. We said vows that didn't promise perfection, only presence. The children stood between us like compass points orienting the day. When we kissed, the neighbor's dog howled like a backup tenor and someone's paper plate did a cartwheel across the lawn. It was imperfect, and it was ours. Ordinary is a word people use when they haven't survived its absence. The beauty of our ordinary settled in my bones like nutrition. School pickups and soccer cleats by the door. Piano lessons that turned into kitchen concerts, the smell of pancakes in the hall, and the sound of Mason practicing chords that didn't yet believe in themselves. Lauren humming while he patched a punctured tire on a Saturday morning. Iris painting a skyline on the inside of a cereal box so the city could wake up somewhere unexpected. Sometimes, after the kids were asleep, I would take the tin box from the back of the closet, the one with the note, the bank statements, the investigator's report, and place it on the dresser. Not to reopen anything, just to remind myself that the past was real and survived. Loren never asked me to throw it away. He only handed me the key and said, "When you're ready." I wish I could say the story ended there, in the soft place we built with our hands and our tired hope. 2 years into our marriage, a Tuesday in late summer, I was at the sink with my wrists under cold water, rinsing berry stains from a cutting board, when I noticed the car I didn't recognize turning into our driveway. It idled for a moment, as if unsure of its welcome. Through the kitchen window, I watched a man sit still behind the wheel, thinner than memory, hair darker than the last picture my mind insisted on using. He took too long to open the door. He stared at the swing set Loren had built with the kids and the garden bed Iris painted with stars. Then he stepped out, smoothed the front of a jacket that didn't belong to this heat, and stood very still. It is a strange thing to feel the fault line in your life shift under your feet while nothing in the room moves. The water kept running. The cutting board gleamed. Somewhere in the house, a timer beeped for a batch of muffins I would later forget, and then remember when it was too late. I pressed my palm flat to the counter as if the laminate could steady the earth. He was on the porch before the past had finished catching up with me. I saw the envelope in his hand, the fat, official kind, and I understood before the knock that whatever he had come to say would not fit through our door without breaking something. I didn't turn off the water. I didn't close the tin box. I walked toward the sound of knuckles on wood, feeling the quiet we had earned gather itself like a living thing, ready. Lauren reached the door first. From the kitchen, I could see the way he squared his shoulders, a subtle, protective instinct that had become muscle memory. When he opened it, the sound of his voice caught slightly, as if politeness and warning were fighting for dominance. "Can I help you?" The man on the porch, my ex-husband, Victor, looked like the ghost of a decision I'd made years ago. Thinner, paler, his posture both rehearsed and trembling. When his eyes found mine over Lauren's shoulder, I saw recognition flicker, followed by something colder, possession trying to remember its rights. "Ilara," he said my name like it had been kept on ice. I stepped closer, wiping my hands on a towel I didn't remember holding. "Victor?" His gaze dropped to Lauren's left hand, to the wedding ring glinting in the afternoon light. His throat moved, swallowing something jagged. Then, as if cued by an unseen director, he held up the thick manila envelope between us. "I'm here for the kids," he said. The words fell into the house like stones. Lauren's expression didn't change. "You should leave." "I have legal documentation," Victor continued, his tone firming with each syllable. "Proof that I've completed therapy, maintained employment, and stayed sober for 2 years. I never gave up my parental rights." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You disappeared for 6 years, Victor." "I was sick," he said quickly. "I was broken, and I got help. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" Before I could answer, the sound of running feet filled the hallway. Chloe appeared first, 11 now, taller, sharper around the eyes, her hair pulled into the braid Lauren had perfected. Mason, 8, trailed behind her, his laughter fading when he saw who stood at the door. He froze. Chloe didn't. "You're not supposed to be here," she said flatly. Victor's face softened into the kind of expression you reserve for photographs. "Sweetheart, I know I left, but I'm back now. I'm ready to be your dad again." Chloe's chin lifted, and her voice dropped to something almost adult. "You're not my dad. Loren is." The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the air seemed to hesitate. Mason moved closer to his sister, confusion clouding his small face. He didn't remember much of Victor beyond flashes. A shadow in photographs, a smell of cologne he could no longer name. Victor crouched, hands shaking slightly. "Mason, buddy." Mason stepped back. "Don't call me that." The envelope wavered in Victor's grasp before he straightened, his voice cooling. "Actually, Ilara, I am their legal father, and I have documentation proving I'm fit to reclaim custody." My pulse roared in my ears. "What are you talking about?" "I've been in therapy," he said, the words tumbling faster now. "I've held the same job for 18 months. I live in a 3-bedroom apartment in Portland. I've worked to get better, and I'm ready to raise my children again." "They have a family," I said. "With someone else's husband?" he snapped. Lauren stepped forward then, calm and immovable. "They have stability. That's what you abandoned." "I didn't abandon them," Victor hissed. "I was protecting them from a man who—" "Who what?" I cut in. "Paid the bills? Cooked dinner? Sat in hospital waiting rooms while you were gone?" Victor blinked hard, regaining his footing. "You'll hear from my lawyer. I'm filing a petition to restore custody." Chloe's voice broke through the tension, sharp as glass. "We don't want to go with you." That stopped him. Her small hands clenched at her sides, her jaw trembling, even as she fought to sound brave. "You weren't there when Mason broke his arm. You weren't there when I got sick and Mom didn't sleep for 3 nights. You don't get to show up and act like that didn't happen." Victor's lips parted, but no words came out. Mason pressed closer to Lauren's leg, whispering, "Can he take us?" "No," Lauren said softly. "No one's taking you anywhere." But the envelope, the symbol of bureaucracy, of rights written by strangers, still hung in the air like a storm warning. That night, after Victor finally drove away, I sat at the dining table, staring at the same papers he'd dropped off. Legal petitions, notarized letters from therapists and employers, character references from people who only knew the version of him he wanted them to see. It was all neatly typed, dated, and terrifying. "He's serious," I said quietly. Lauren nodded. "Then we'll be serious too." The next morning, I called 3 family lawyers. The first one, practical and tired, warned me that biological parents had strong standing in court. "His absence works against him," she said, "but rehabilitation narratives are powerful. Judges like redemption arcs." The second lawyer, younger, leaned toward optimism. "The kids' stability will matter. 6 years is a long time. Their voices count, especially if they're old enough to express clear preferences." The third, Mara Jensen, a specialist in high-conflict custody cases, was blunt and unflinching. "He'll win something," she said. "The question is how much and how fast. Our goal will be to slow him down. Document everything: school reports, medical records, emotional well-being. The children's attachment to your current family is your strongest defense." Her clarity scared me more than any threat Victor could make. I hired her on the spot. A week later, court papers arrived. Victor had filed a formal petition to restore parental rights and requested immediate unsupervised visitation with the intent to transition into shared custody within 6 months. The judge denied the immediate visitation, but appointed a guardian ad litem, a neutral party, to represent the children's interests. Her name was Patricia Hoffman, a calm woman in her 50s who had seen every version of heartbreak family courts could produce. When she arrived at our home for the first interview, Chloe met her with crossed arms and practiced skepticism. Mason hid behind the couch. Lauren offered tea. Patricia smiled gently. "I'm here to help make sure your voices are heard," she told the children, "not to make you do anything you don't want." It was the first time in weeks I saw Chloe's shoulders drop an inch. But that relief didn't last. Patricia would also visit Victor at his apartment in Portland. When she returned, her report was clinical but telling. Framed photos of the children everywhere, bedrooms fully decorated in their exact ages and sizes, toys arranged like museum pieces. "It's touching," she told me later, "and also deeply concerning. He's living in a frozen version of their childhood. His love is real, but his sense of time is not. Her words lodged in my chest. The custody hearing was set for early October, 6 weeks. Enough time for Victor to gather witnesses, for us to gather proof, and for the children to lose sleep over a man they no longer remembered but couldn't forget. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat by the window with the old tin box on my lap. The note still lay inside, the ink faded but legible. I'll be back when I'm ready to be the father they deserve. 6 years later, I finally understood. He had meant it as a promise, but to us, it sounded like a threat. And now, he was ready. The first visit was set for a Saturday afternoon in a beige building with walls the color of compromise. A family reunification center, the sign read in cheerful blue letters that didn't fool anyone. Inside, the air smelled faintly of crayons and Lysol, sterile optimism for broken families trying to behave. We weren't allowed in the same room during the session. Lauren and I waited behind a one-way glass window while Chloe and Mason sat at a round table with Victor, a social worker stationed quietly in the corner. I had promised myself I wouldn't cry, but when I saw Mason flinch at Victor's hug, my nails left half moons in my palms. Victor had come prepared, brand new board games, art kits, and matching soccer balls. He leaned forward too much, laughed too loudly, like enthusiasm could fill the 6-year canyon between them. "So, tell me about school," he said, forcing brightness. Chloe looked at the table. "It's fine. What's your favorite subject?" "Science." "That's great. I loved science too. What kind?" "Biology," she muttered. "Are you thinking about being a doctor? Or maybe a—" She shrugged. The air thickened. Mason traced the edge of a puzzle piece like it might offer an escape route. Through the glass, Lauren whispered, "He's trying too hard." I nodded, swallowing against the ache in my throat. He doesn't realize they don't know him anymore. For 2 hours, they played the game of pretending, Victor asking polite questions, Chloe giving one-word answers, Mason watching the clock. When it was finally over, the social worker smiled carefully. That went fine. Chloe didn't speak until we reached the car. "I don't want to go back," she said, voice tight. That night, she crawled into our bed for the first time in years, clutching the stuffed rabbit Loren had sewn a new ear onto last spring. "He smells like someone else," she whispered, "like a stranger wearing Dad's name." I pressed my lips to her hair. "You're safe, sweetheart. He can't make you go anywhere." "But he's going to try," she said, eyes wide in the dark. And she wasn't wrong. The second visit came a week later. Victor had adjusted his strategy. Fewer questions, more activities. He brought finger paints and sketchbooks, probably remembering how much Mason had loved drawing dinosaurs as a little boy. Mason actually smiled once, hesitant, quick, but it was something. Chloe stayed polite, detached. She painted a single blue line across her page and refused to explain it. When we picked them up, Mason said quietly, "He's not mean." "I didn't say he was," I replied. "I just don't like how he looks at me," he added, staring out the window. By the third visit, exhaustion had replaced curiosity. Chloe began describing the sessions as playing house with a stranger. The social worker's notes mirrored her words. Father exhibits sustained effort. Children display compliant but emotionally distant behavior. Minimal bonding achieved. The court extended the supervised visits another 3 months, citing the children's emotional fragility and continued adjustment period. Victor didn't take it well. The next time he saw me in the lobby, his voice dropped low, almost a growl. "You're turning them against me." I met his stare. They're remembering the truth. He stepped closer, the tremor in his jaw betraying the calm tone he was trying to maintain. "You always needed to be the hero, Alara, but you can't erase me." Lauren stepped between us before I could reply. "You left," he said evenly. "You erased yourself." Victor's lawyer pulled him back before the situation escalated, but the damage lingered. That night, I documented everything. His tone, the words, the look in his eyes. Our attorney told us to keep records of every encounter, every sign of distress the children showed before and after visits. Courts don't judge feelings, she warned. They judge patterns. So we built a paper trail of heartbreak. Notes from school counselors about nightmares returning, Chloe's declining appetite, Mason's sudden reluctance to sleep alone. Every data point was a bruise we had to photograph. By the fourth session, even the social worker looked weary. "He's making an effort," she admitted privately, "but the kids are holding their ground. They've built a world he wasn't in, and they don't know how to make room for him now." During the session, I watched through the window as Victor tried to teach Mason a card trick. The boy's laughter startled me, a sound so rare it hurt to hear. But when Victor reached to ruffle his hair, Mason flinched again. The joy evaporated like breath on glass. Afterward, Chloe asked, "Do I have to keep going?" "Legally, yes," I said softly. "Then tell the judge I'm doing it under protest." Her words, calm, deliberate, echoed in my chest long after she went upstairs. Over the next weeks, the rhythm settled into something grimly predictable. Saturdays at 2, 2 hours of tension, reports filed, sleep lost. Loren and I tried to restore normalcy. Board games, camping trips, pancake Sundays. But each time the phone rang with a number we didn't recognize, my stomach clenched, half expecting another demand from Victor's lawyer. The small reprieves came from Patricia, the guardian ad litem. Her reports grew increasingly candid. The children expressed persistent anxiety surrounding contact with their biological father, one read. They display strong attachment to their current caregivers and demonstrate stability within their blended family unit. The words were our lifeline. Still, the court moved cautiously. Family reunification cases were built on the belief that redemption should be rewarded. But redemption, I was learning, doesn't always make a person safe. One evening, as we were putting away groceries, Lauren said quietly, "He's not doing this for them. He's doing it to undo us." I looked at him, startled by the certainty in his tone. "He can't stand the fact that you built something after he broke it." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because somewhere deep down I knew he was right. The following Saturday, Mason refused to get dressed for the visit. Shoes flung across the hallway, tears streaking down his cheeks. "I don't want to see him," he shouted. "He makes me feel bad for not missing him." I knelt, holding his face in my hands. "You don't owe him anything, Mason, not even missing him." Still, the court order left no room for choice. When we arrived, Mason clung to Lauren's arms so tightly the social worker had to gently coax him away. Chloe sat stone still beside her brother, lips pressed white. Victor smiled too brightly again, and I realized that even recovery couldn't fix the part of him that needed to be worshipped. The social worker's notes later reflected what I had seen but couldn't say aloud. Father demonstrates genuine remorse but limited insight into children's emotional needs. That night, I stood at the window while rain pressed against the glass, thinking of how love can rot when left unattended. Victor had come back asking to harvest what he'd abandoned, but the soil had changed. In the darkness, Lauren came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "We'll protect them," he said, "even if the system doesn't." "I know," I whispered, "but I think we're only at the beginning." Outside, thunder rolled far away, soft, almost polite, as if knocking first. 3 months of supervised visits changed everyone in quiet, painful ways. The kids stopped asking when they'd end, stopped hoping for a verdict that would make it all disappear. They simply endured them, like weekly weather they couldn't avoid. Chloe began journaling, though she never let me read it. Mason started asking what would happen if judges make mistakes. Every Saturday, we'd drive to the center, watch them disappear into the beige room, and hold our breath until the door opened again. But something unexpected began to shift, not toward Victor, but between the children themselves. They became clearer, sharper, stronger in their truth. Each visit taught them not who their father was, but who they were without him. By the end of the 3rd month, the social worker's notes sounded more like confessions than reports. Children continue to display politeness, but emotional disengagement. They maintain consistent attachment to current caregivers, minimal evidence of bonding with biological father. Victor, however, didn't see it that way. To him, every forced smile was progress, every polite answer a victory. He told the social worker he believed they were warming up, that they just need time. At home, that illusion shattered fast. One evening, while I made dinner, Chloe sat at the kitchen island with her math homework untouched. "He keeps bringing me stuff," she said suddenly. "Sketchbooks, shirts, toys Mason's too old for. He thinks he can buy being a dad." "You don't have to accept anything you don't want," I said carefully. She looked up at me, eyes too wise for 11. "That's not the point. He doesn't even ask what we like now. It's like he's trying to make us be who we were when he left." Later that week, Patricia, the guardian ad litem, visited again. This time, she spoke privately with each of the kids. Mason went first. "I don't want to see him anymore," he told her, small hands gripping the hem of his shirt. "He keeps asking about things I don't remember, like my dinosaur pajamas. I don't have those anymore. I don't even like dinosaurs now." Patricia nodded, writing notes, but listening more with her eyes than her pen. And how does that make you feel? Like I'm wrong for growing up, he whispered. When it was Chloe's turn, she didn't cry. She didn't even blink. He's not mean, she said simply. He just doesn't fit. It's like he's wearing the wrong version of our life. Patricia's report that week was her longest yet. Children exhibit clear, consistent resistance to reunification. They articulate feelings of discomfort and emotional confusion after each visit. Both express preference to remain permanently with Alara and Lauren, citing feelings of safety, stability, and belonging. Recommend continued supervised visitation and psychological evaluation for biological father to assess readiness for unsupervised contact. It was the kind of document that could change everything or nothing at all. Our lawyer, Mara, read it with quiet satisfaction. This is strong, she said. The judge will take this seriously. Still, Victor's side filed motions for unsupervised visitation, claiming progress and emotional reconnection. The hearing date was set. The night before court, I found Chloe sitting on the edge of her bed, brushing her hair in slow, deliberate strokes. Are they going to make us go with him? She asked, not looking up. No, I said automatically, but the certainty in my voice cracked halfway through. She turned, brushing still in hand. Mom, promise me something. Anything. Don't let them make me call him Dad again. The next morning, we walked into the courtroom. Victor sat at the opposite table, hair neatly trimmed, suit pressed, his lawyer whispering confidently beside him. I noticed how he avoided my eyes, how he looked at the kids instead, like they were proof of something he'd built and lost. When the judge entered, the room stilled. Papers rustled, pens clicked, hearts held their breath. Mara began. Your Honor, the children have participated in every mandated visit. Their cooperation has been exemplary. However, these sessions have not fostered genuine emotional connection, only anxiety and distress. They have consistently expressed their desire to remain with their current family. Victor's attorney countered, smooth and relentless. My client has demonstrated recovery, stability, and commitment. He's done everything the court asked and more. The children's resistance stems from alienation and emotional coaching. The judge's gaze shifted to Patricia. Ms. Hoffman, your assessment? Patricia stood, her calm voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. These children are not alienated. They are protecting themselves. What Mr. Brennan perceives as rejection is a boundary, one they had to build to survive his absence. Victor's jaw tightened. That's not fair, he said loudly. I got help. I worked for this. Patricia met his gaze. Getting better doesn't erase what was broken, Mr. Brennan, and healing doesn't entitle you to people who no longer feel safe with you. The judge took a long breath, shuffling papers he'd already decided on. After reviewing all reports and hearing the testimony, the court finds that continued supervised visitation is in the children's best interest. Unsupervised contact is denied. Victor's lawyer objected, but it was half-hearted. The gavel hit the wood. In that single crack of sound, months of tension collapsed into exhaustion. Victor turned toward me as everyone began to stand. You'll regret this, he said softly. They'll hate you for keeping them from me. They don't hate anyone, I replied. That's what makes them nothing like you. Outside the courthouse, Chloe and Mason exhaled together, the way divers break the surface after too long underwater. Loren pulled them both into his arms, one on each side, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Mason laughed for the first time that day. That night, we ate pizza in the living room, all four of us under one blanket. The television flickered silently, forgotten. Chloe leaned against me and said, Does this mean it's over? Not yet, I said, but soon. And for the first time in years, I almost believed it. The official paperwork came 3 months later. Plain white envelope, government seal, the kind of thing that usually means taxes or jury duty. But this one meant peace. Inside, the court order confirmed what our hearts already knew. Victor's parental rights were permanently terminated. The children's adoption by Lauren and me was finalized. For the first time, the law and love stood on the same side. Chloe read the letter aloud in the kitchen, her voice steady, proud. Mason stood beside her, tracing the embossed seal with his finger like it was something holy. Lauren leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes wet. When she finished, Chloe exhaled and said, So, now it's official. We're all the same name. I smiled through the lump in my throat. We've been the same name for a long time. That night, we celebrated with pancakes, our family's tradition for every victory, big or small. Iris made a sign that said, "The Forever Family," all glitter and crooked letters. Mason hung it on the fridge. Chloe pretended to roll her eyes, but left it there. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't dream about the day Victor left. The house was quiet, not because it was waiting for something, but because it was full. Still, each October, like clockwork, an envelope arrived. Postmarked from Portland. No return address. Always the same neat handwriting. "Happy birthday, Chloe. Love, Dad." For 2 years, she ignored them. Then, on her 14th birthday, she opened one. Inside was a photo of Victor standing on a hiking trail, older now, eyes tired but clear. There was no apology, just 3 sentences. "I hope you're happy. You deserve everything good. I'm sorry I didn't stay to see it." She folded it neatly, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in the tin box, where I still kept the first note he'd ever left. "I don't hate him," she said quietly. "I just don't need him anymore." Mason, 12 by then, nodded. Maybe that's what being grown up means. Life settled into something beautifully ordinary again. Chloe became captain of her soccer team, Mason discovered a talent for the piano, and Iris, always our dreamer, won a regional art competition with a painting called "Home Has 3 Front Doors." Our weekends filled with tournaments, recitals, and grocery runs. Loren and I took turns being the designated chauffeur. Sometimes, after the chaos, we'd sit on the porch in silence, coffee in hand, just listening to the sound of our children's laughter echoing from inside. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if he hadn't left?" Lauren asked one night. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but then I look at them, and I can't imagine them being any other way." He smiled. "You built something unbreakable, Ilara." "We did," I corrected. "The truth is, I stopped checking the mailbox for his letters long ago. I stopped flinching when I heard the word father on other people's tongues. What lingered wasn't bitterness, it was gratitude, for the pain that carved space for something better, for the endings that made way for beginnings." One evening, as the sun slipped behind the fence, I opened the old tin box for the last time. The first note still lay on top, the ink faded but legible. "I'll be back when I'm ready to be the father they deserve." I traced the words with my thumb, then smiled softly, because by the time he was ready, they already had the father they deserved. And the mother who never left.